Chains and the Child. Voices of the Old Cell, Episode 1, The Rusty Door. Mud houses, bullock carts, oil lamps, lit at dusk, and simplicity woven deep into people's hearts. When the sun disappeared behind the hills, the whole village bathed in golden light. Children would return from the fields. Mothers would begin cooking on clay stoves, and elders would gather under trees with their hookahs. One story was told again and again, the tale of the old cell. This cell stood behind the village mosque, dilapidated, deserted, with a rusty lock on its door. People said it dated back to the British era. It was believed that freedom fighters were once imprisoned there, and their cries still echoed in the walls. All the children of the village feared that place, except one, Zaid, wheatish complexion, sparkling eyes, and full of curiosity. Zaid often wondered, if chains could speak, what would they say? One evening, he made up his mind. He walked quietly toward the mosque once the call to prayer had ended, and people were inside offering salah. Stealthily, the lock was still there, but the door seemed slightly ajar, as if the wind had finally broken its stubbornness. With trembling hands, Zaid pushed the door. A sound emerged, as if time itself was groaning. Inside, it was completely dark. A single ray of light filtered through a narrow opening, illuminating dust particles floating in the air. The walls had old scratches, the floor was layered with dirt, and in one corner lay a bundle of chains. Zaid slowly stepped forward. The chains were rusted, yet strangely captivating, as if touching them might turn back time. He reached out gently and touched them. Then, suddenly, a faint echo arose. "Can you hear me?" The voice came from the chains. Zaid froze. He could hear his own heartbeat. "Are you the first one? Who isn't afraid?" In a trembling voice, Zaid replied, Who are you? "I am the one who opened my eyes in captivity and heard the screams of freedom. I am the chains, But more than that, I am a story." Zaid stared at them in astonishment. This was the beginning of a strange friendship between Zaid and the chains. The chains fell silent. In the cell, only the sound of Zaid's breathing remained. Outside, the Maghrib call to prayer had ended, and darkness was settling over the walls of the old cell. Zaid gathered his courage and asked, "You said you're a story. What kind of story?" The chains began to move slowly. The rusted links clinked together, making a faint, chiming sound, like breaths from centuries past returning to life. "It's the story of the boy." "Who was my first prisoner?" Zaid asked in wonder. "A boy. Was he also a child?" "No. He was a 17-year-old young man. His name was Yamin. Sharp eyes, strong arms, but a heart full of revolution. He shouted slogans against the British, wrote verses of freedom on walls. Eventually, he was caught, and ... Zaid instinctively looked toward the wall, as if trying to hear Yamin's voice. I bound his hands. Blood flowed from his wrists, but there was no fear in his eyes. Only a dream, the dream of a free sky. Tears welled up in Zaid's eyes. He wanted to ask what happened next, but the chains spoke on their own. One day, an officer came, fair-skinned, harsh voice. He told Yamin, "You will be hanged tomorrow." But that night, ... Yamin spoke to me. For the first time, someone spoke to me. He said, "You are made of iron. I am of flesh and blood, but I am free, and you are imprisoned." And I froze. Do you know, Zaid? That night I understood that captivity isn't just of the body. It can also bind dreams. And Yamin's dream was free from me. A tear dropped from Zaid's eye and fell to the ground. Then ... then they hanged him, Zaid asked softly. "Yes, with the first rays of the morning sun. But before he left, he told me, one day, a child will come to listen, to understand you. Perhaps that day, you too will be free. I waited for years, Zaid, and today ... you have come." Zaid gently touched the chains. There was no fear in his touch, only respect. Suddenly, the Isha call to prayer echoed from the mosque. Zaid startled. He knew it was time to return, or his mother would worry. "I'll come again tomorrow, I promise," Zaid said. The chains whispered softly, "I will be waiting, my final friend." Zaid opened the door and stepped outside. Stars had begun to twinkle in the sky, as if someone above was watching too. Perhaps ... The next day, after school, Zaid hurried through lunch, made an excuse about his books, and took the same path that led behind the mosque to the old cell. His heart beat faster than usual, as if it already knew a new story was waiting to be told. The door was just as it had been, quiet, slouched, rusted. Zaid gently pushed it open and stepped inside. The chains still lay in the corner, unchanged, yet breathing a little heavier today, as if weighed down by something. "I'm here," Zaid said. "I knew you would come." The chains spoke softly, as if the voice was drifting in from far away. Whose story is it today? Zaid asked eagerly. Silence fell over the room. Then the chains spoke again, their voice carrying a hint of sorrow. Today, it is the tale of a prisoner, punished for speaking. Zaid's eyes widened. Was she also a rebel? No. She was a woman. Zaid went quiet. The chains continued. Her name was Niranissa, around 25 years old, educated, yet simple. While the village men found comfort in working under the British, she wanted to teach women. She would say, "When a pen is held in hand, chains begin to break." Something stirred inside. Zaid, his own mother, often said the same thing while grinding wheat during the day. Education changes lives. Niranissa began teaching the village children, especially the girls, sitting with them in her courtyard. At first, people stayed silent, but then Morvi Shams and the landlord, Saikanada, issued fatwas against her. They said, "This woman is spreading disorder," and one night they came. Zaid inhaled sharply. They brought her here, to this very cell, and I was the one who bound her hands. But she didn't scream. She simply looked up at the sky and said, "You may imprison me, but not my dream." The next day she passed away quietly, maybe from her wounds, maybe from heartbreak. No one knows for sure. The room went still. Tears rolled down Zaid's cheeks. "Is her grave somewhere nearby?" he asked. No. No funeral prayer was held. Her body was quietly floated down the river. But I repeat her words every night. My dream cannot die. Zaid took the chains in his hands. They didn't feel cold anymore. They were warm, as if filled with emotion. "You carry so many lives within you," Zaid whispered. "Yes, and you are the first to set them free," said the chains. Zaid remained quiet for a long time. He now knew he hadn't come just to listen. He had come to remember. Episode 4. The heart of the chain that day. It felt as if the sun had decided to set a little early. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, and the air was thick with moisture. As Zaid stepped out of the house, raindrops began to fall, but his steps didn't falter. He knew that today's visit was not just to listen, it was to ask. When he entered the cell, the room felt damp. Water dripped down the old stone walls, and the chains lay still, as if lost in deep thought. "I'm here," Zaid said. "I know," the chains replied softly. "Each day you take one step closer, Zaid." Zaid stood in silence. Moments passed. Then, gently, he asked, "Do you ever feel imprisoned yourself? I mean, have you ever wanted to be free, too?" The chains remained quiet. The question seemed to sink deep, like a thorn pressing inward. Then, slowly, their voice rose. But today, it was not like before. It was heavy, burdened, as if an old wound had been touched. "Zaid, people believe I imprison others, that I'm a symbol of cruelty. But no one ever asks, who chained me?" Zaid's breath caught. "I'm made of iron, forged into chains. But what was my crime? I was only used. I never chose whom to bind or whom to leave free. I've heard sobs, felt blood, absorbed screams. But inside me, too, a silence has always screamed. No one ever heard it." Zaid's eyes welled with tears. "So you were helpless, too." "Not just helpless, a witness. I had to hold the pain of others again and again, yet no one ever asked if that pain seeped into me as well. I'm not just the one who imprisons. I am imprisoned too, inside a role, inside an identity. People look at me with hatred, but all I've done is silently endure it all." Outside, the rain had grown heavier. Inside the cell, the sound of dripping echoed louder. Zaid reached out and touched the chains. They weren't cold anymore. They were burning from within. "I forgive you," Zaid whispered, "because you didn't do the injustice. You only witnessed it." A faint clink rose from the chains, like the breath of something that hadn't moved in years. "Thank you, Zaid. You saw me for who I really am." Zaid stood up quietly. In his heart, there was no fear, only sympathy, respect, and a deep bond. He knew that today, he hadn't just heard a story, he had touched a soul. Episode 5. The moment of freedom. When Zaid came home that evening, his heart felt full. He was eating dinner, but his mind was far away. His mother noticed and asked gently, "Zaid, what's the matter? You've been so quiet lately." Zaid paused for a moment. Then, for the first time, he spoke about the chains. "Ami, the old room behind the mosque. I go there every day. There are chains there. And they speak." His mother froze. The bread in her hand stopped mid-air. What did you say? They speak. Her voice trembled with something between fear and memory. Zaid slowly shared everything. About Yamin, about Nisa, and about the chain's own story. His mother sat in silence for a while. Then she stood up, walked to an old trunk, and pulled out a carefully wrapped cloth. Inside it was a faded photograph, a young woman with bright, determined eyes. This, is your grandmother, Zaid. Nor, Unisa. Zaid breath caught. The grandmother I'd never met. Tears shimmered in his mother's eyes. When she was imprisoned, only your Kala had been born. Her story was buried in our family, because society couldn't accept her defiance. We remembered her name, Zaid, not her struggle. Silent tears streamed down Zaid's face. It felt like she was still alive. Inside those chains. His mother nodded slowly. Maybe she is. In your questions, your thoughts, and your compassion. The next day, Zaid made a decision. After morning prayers, he walked once more to the old cell. Standing before the chains, he said, "Today I've come to say goodbye. But before I leave, I've come to set you free." The chains gave a faint echo, their voice gentle. "Do you know, Zaid, all I ever wanted was for someone to hear my stories. And you did. I no longer need captivity." Zaid slowly picked up the rusted chains. They were still heavy, but in his hands, they felt light, as if they had finally surrendered after years of resistance. He carried them to the riverbank. Then, with quiet reverence, as if performing a funeral, he placed them in the water and let them go. The river gently pulled them away. The chains were gone, but their voices, their stories, were now safely held in Zaid's heart. Final message: one who truly listens can even set a prisoner free. If someone hears the screams of chains, the chains begin to speak, and through speaking, they are freed. The end. The story was over, but perhaps it marked the beginning of a new life for Zaid, one where he was no longer just a student of books, but a listener of hearts.